You're tired. You've prayed, cried, and waited, but nothing seems to change. Before you give up, stop right here, because God is about to move in a way you never expected. This message isn't just another sermon. It's the sign you've been praying for. Don't scroll, don't quit, just listen. Your breakthrough might be one prayer away when life feels unbearable, and the silence of heaven echoes louder than your prayers. It's easy to believe that God has forgotten you. You look around and see everyone else moving forward, people receiving blessings, breakthroughs, promotions, and healing, while you remain stuck in the same waiting room of pain. You start to wonder if maybe God has closed the door for good, if maybe your season of miracles has expired. But the truth is, God is still working, even when you can't see it. His hands are never idle, His heart is never distant, and His timing is never wrong. The silence of God is not the absence of God. It is often the stage on which He prepares His greatest work. When you pray and nothing seems to change, don't mistake stillness for abandonment. God often works in the background, shaping circumstances, moving hearts, and aligning things far beyond your understanding. Think of Joseph in the prison. On the surface, he was forgotten, betrayed, and left behind. But in reality, God was preparing a throne. Think of Ruth gathering leftovers in a field. To her, it might have seemed like survival, but God was orchestrating her path to destiny. And think of Jesus in the tomb. When everyone thought the story was over, heaven was working behind sealed stone. You see, silence does not mean God has stopped working. It often means He is working on something so big that it requires divine timing. Our problem is that we live by what we see. When doors close, we panic. When prayers are delayed, we doubt. But God never called us to live by sight. He called us to live by faith. Faith means believing in the unseen hand that guides you through visible chaos. It means trusting that the God who began the story is too faithful to leave it unfinished. When you can't trace His hand, trust His heart. Even when your prayers seem unanswered, God might be protecting you from what you thought you wanted, so He can give you what you truly need. Sometimes, God's greatest miracles come disguised as silence. When He doesn't move the mountain, He's often teaching you how to climb it. When He doesn't remove the storm, He's teaching you how to walk on water. When He doesn't answer immediately, He's deepening your roots so that when the blessing comes, you'll be able to carry its weight. Every delay in your life carries divine purpose. The waiting season is never wasted. It's the season where God develops the strength, patience, and character needed for your promise. Imagine a seed buried underground. It's dark, it's silent, and it's covered by dirt. To the seed, it may seem like the end, but beneath the surface, life is being formed. The seed must stay hidden for a time, because growth doesn't begin in the sunlight. It begins in the soil. That's what God does with us. He allows us to go through hidden seasons, silent seasons, and painful seasons, not to destroy us, but to develop us. Because when the right moment comes, He brings forth what He has been forming all along. You are not buried, you are planted. When you feel forgotten, remember this: God's silence is a test of your faith, not a reflection of His love. The teacher is always silent during the test, but he's still in the room. Likewise, when God is quiet, He hasn't abandoned you. He's observing your endurance, your trust, your praise in the middle of the pain. Because faith that can only praise in comfort is not faith, it's convenience. True faith praises even when the outcome is unclear. It says, God, even if I don't understand, I will still trust you. There's something powerful that happens when you refuse to give up in silence. Heaven leans closer to those who remain faithful when everything falls apart. You become a living testimony that faith is not about getting what you want. It's about trusting God even when you don't. Your perseverance becomes worship. Your tears become prayer. Your waiting becomes warfare. You are not losing time by trusting God. You are being positioned for His perfect timing. Every miracle in the Bible was born out of a moment of despair. Abraham waited decades for a son. Hannah wept for years before Samuel was born. Daniel prayed through the lion's den. Paul sang praises in prison. And Jesus waited 3 days in the tomb. In every case, the situation looked hopeless before heaven intervened. God allows your faith to be stretched so that His glory can be revealed. When you reach the end of yourself, that's when you discover the beginning of God's power. So if you're walking through a season of silence, don't lose heart. Just because you can't see progress doesn't mean there isn't movement. God works in layers, in the spiritual before the physical, in the unseen before the seen. You may think nothing is happening, but heaven is aligning every detail for your good. Romans 8:28 doesn't say all things are good. It says all things work together for good. That means the heartbreak, the setback, the disappointment, and the delay are all pieces of a greater picture. You might be holding a puzzle piece that makes no sense right now, but one day you will see the full masterpiece and you'll understand why God did it the way He did. There will come a moment when everything clicks, when the waiting ends and the answer comes rushing in like a flood. And in that moment, you'll look back and realize that every tear, every sleepless night, every unanswered prayer was worth it. Because the same God who was silent in the waiting was working in the unseen. He never stopped being your provider. He never stopped being your protector. He never stopped being your father. So before you give up, pause and remind yourself, God is not done with your story. If He were finished, you wouldn't still be here. The very breath in your lungs is proof that heaven still has plans for you. The battle isn't over. The delay isn't denial. The silence isn't rejection. It's preparation. Trust the process. Keep praying, even when it feels like you're praying into the dark. Because every whisper of faith reaches the ears of God. And one day soon, He will answer in a way that exceeds your imagination. God is still working behind what you can't see. He's rewriting your story in a way that will turn your pain into purpose and your trials into testimony. Hold on, keep believing, don't quit before the miracle comes, because the next chapter of your life might just be the one where everything changes. There comes a moment in every believer's life when strength runs out. You pray, you fight, you hold on, but still nothing seems to change. Your heart grows tired, your faith feels weak, and your spirit begins to whisper, I can't do this anymore. That's the very moment when heaven leans in and says, good, now let me. Because your weakness is not your ending, it is the doorway to God's power. God never needed your strength to begin with. He only needed your surrender. He is not attracted to perfection. He is drawn to dependence. When you reach the end of yourself, you finally make room for Him to step in. As long as you keep trying to fix everything on your own, God will let you. But when you finally fall to your knees and admit, Lord, I can't carry this anymore, that's when divine power begins to flow. Human effort can only take you so far, but divine grace can take you beyond the limits of your own strength. The Bible says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Notice, it doesn't say His power is made visible in your victories. It says it's made perfect in your weakness. That means the moments you feel most broken are the very moments when God is most active. You see, weakness is not failure. It's an invitation. When your hands are trembling and your hope feels thin, you are standing at the threshold of divine partnership. God never meant for you to carry the full weight of your battles. He wants to exchange your exhaustion for His energy, your pain for His peace, your despair for His direction. Prayer is not just about talking to God, it's about trading burdens. Every time you kneel in surrender, you are saying, Lord, I give you what I can't control. And in that exchange, your weakness becomes a bridge for His power to enter your life. Think of the great men and women of faith. Moses said, I'm not eloquent. Gideon said, I'm too weak. Jeremiah said, I'm too young. Peter said, I'm too sinful. Paul said, I have a thorn. Every one of them felt inadequate, and yet every one of them became unstoppable when they stopped depending on themselves. That's because the kingdom of God doesn't advance through human strength. It advances through divine surrender. The moment you realize you can't, God steps in and says, I already can. Our world teaches us to hide weakness. We are told to appear strong, to smile when we're breaking, to push through even when our soul is exhausted. But God doesn't ask for a performance. He asks for honesty. He's not impressed by your ability to pretend. He's moved by your willingness to yield. You don't have to come to Him polished. You just have to come to Him real. When you bring your weakness to His altar, He transforms it into a testimony. Sometimes God will let you walk through situations that strip you of control so that you can finally understand the beauty of dependence. It's not punishment, it's preparation. The wilderness is not a place of failure, it's a classroom of faith. God allows certain seasons where your resources dry up, your plans collapse, and your energy fades. Not to destroy you, but to show you what He can do when all you have left is Him. In that emptiness, you discover that His presence is more powerful than your plans, and His strength is stronger than your fear. When you say, God, I'm tired, He says, come to me, and I will give you rest. When you say, Lord, I'm weak, He says, my strength will uphold you. When you whisper, I can't, He replies, but I can. The greatest miracles are not born in comfort, they are born in collapse. It's when your strength is gone that His strength takes over. That's why some of your deepest wounds will become your greatest weapons. The thing that broke you may be the very thing God uses to bless others. The cross itself is the greatest example. On that dark hill, Christ looked the weakest He had ever been, beaten, bleeding, nailed to wood. To the world, it looked like defeat. But in that moment of total surrender, heaven was displaying its greatest power. Through weakness came redemption, through surrender came victory, and through death came resurrection. The same principle still applies today. When you surrender, heaven moves. When you give up your need to control, God begins to control the uncontrollable. Some people believe strength means never falling apart. But in God's eyes, strength means falling apart and still believing He will put you back together. It means crying out through your tears and saying, God, I trust you even here. You may not understand the process, but faith is not about understanding. It's about resting in the one who does. God doesn't measure your strength by how much you endure alone. He measures it by how quickly you run back to Him. The strongest believers are not those who never feel weak. They are those who know exactly where to go when they do. When life knocks you down, don't rush to stand up in your own power. Stay there for a moment. Let God lift you. Let Him remind you that you were never meant to stand alone. Sometimes your knees are the most powerful place you can be. The enemy wants you to believe that weakness disqualifies you, but the truth is, it qualifies you. Because God cannot fill what is already full of itself. He pours His power into those who are humble enough to admit they need Him. You might be in a season where everything feels too heavy. The relationship isn't healing. The doors aren't opening. The prayers seem unanswered. You've tried, cried, and done everything you can, but nothing changes. Don't see this as defeat. See it as divine positioning. God is not ignoring you. He's inviting you to lean deeper into His strength. You are not failing, you are being refined. The same God who carried you through every past storm will carry you through this one too. Every time you say, Lord, I surrender, you loosen the chains of self-reliance and invite the supernatural. Heaven moves on behalf of the humble. The moment you stop striving and start trusting, miracles begin to manifest. You look back and realize that the days you felt the weakest were the days you were actually the strongest, because you were leaning fully on God. So don't be ashamed of your weakness. Don't hide your scars. Let them testify of the God who carried you when you couldn't carry yourself. Let them remind you that His power is not limited by your ability. It is released through your surrender. Every trial that exposes your weakness is also exposing God's opportunity to show His glory. When the weight feels unbearable, whisper this prayer: Lord, I am not enough, but you are. I cannot, but you can. I am weak, but you are my strength. Then let peace flood your heart, because you are not fighting alone. The Creator of the universe stands beside you, and His power is made perfect right where you feel powerless. Your weakness is not a curse, it's a calling. It's God's way of saying, now let me take over. So before you give up, remember this truth: you were never meant to win life's battles by your own strength. You are meant to depend on the one whose power has no limit, whose love never fails, and whose grace is always enough. Let go, lean in, and watch how God turns your weakness into a living demonstration of His unstoppable power. There comes a point in your journey where all the trying, all the pushing, all the forcing finally breaks you down to one sacred act: surrender. You've prayed, planned, and fought for things to change, but nothing seems to move. You've cried until your soul feels empty, yet heaven remains quiet. It's in this moment when you release your grip on the situation and say, Lord, I give it to you, that real transformation begins. Because the prayer that changes everything doesn't start with demands, it starts with surrender. Surrender is not a sign of weakness, it is the ultimate expression of trust. It means you've reached a place where you no longer rely on your own understanding, but instead choose to rest in God's wisdom. It means saying, God, I don't know how, but I trust you will. Every miracle in Scripture began with someone who let go. Abraham left his homeland without knowing where he was going. Moses laid down his staff. Esther risked her life. Mary said, let it be done to me according to your word. Each of them experienced divine intervention only after surrendering control. The reason surrender is powerful is because it aligns your heart with heaven's will. You can pray endlessly, but until your heart bows, your prayers remain confined within human desire. God doesn't just respond to words, He responds to yielded hearts. When you surrender, you create space for Him to move freely, without limitation, without resistance. Many times the answer is delayed, not because God isn't ready, but because we aren't willing to let go of control. We want His will, but we also want it done our way. And that tension keeps us stuck. When you release control, you stop fighting battles that were never yours to fight. You let God take the pen of your story and rewrite the parts that no longer make sense. You stop begging for understanding and start walking by faith. It's no longer about manipulating outcomes. It's about trusting that whatever outcome He brings will be for your good. That shift changes everything. Suddenly, prayer becomes lighter. You stop praying with anxiety and start praying with peace. You stop worrying about when and how and start resting in the fact that He will. Surrender doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying what was never meant for your shoulders. You stop exhausting your spirit trying to fix what only God can fix. You let Him handle the details that keep you awake at night. You may not know what's ahead, but you know who goes ahead of you. That confidence releases supernatural peace. It allows you to breathe again, to sleep again, to believe again. Because when you let go, you don't lose control. You hand it over to the one who's always had it. Look at Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. The weight of the cross was before Him. He prayed, Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Then He said the most powerful words in the history of prayer, nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. That moment of surrender changed eternity. It wasn't the nails that held Jesus to the cross. It was His surrender. That is the power of a yielded heart. When you stop wrestling with God and start resting in Him, you release heaven's authority into your life. You may be in a season where you've prayed for change, yet nothing is happening. You've declared, fasted, believed, and still silence. Maybe God isn't ignoring you. Maybe He's waiting for you to let go. Sometimes He withholds the answer until you release the need to control it. Because as long as you're gripping the situation tightly, He won't force your hands open. God doesn't fight for control of what you refuse to surrender. But the moment you say, Lord, it's yours, everything begins to shift. What felt impossible suddenly becomes possible because divine power moves where human control ends. Surrender is also the foundation of peace. You can't experience God's peace while clinging to anxiety. You can't walk in faith while holding on to fear. You can't experience freedom while gripping your own plans. Peace flows from trust, and trust flows from surrender. It's only when you release the what-ifs and how longs that you finally rest in His promises. When you surrender, you are saying, God, I trust your heart, even when I can't see your hand. That's not resignation, it's revelation. It's understanding that the one who formed the stars also holds your story. Every person who has ever encountered breakthrough reached a moment where they laid something down. It could be a dream, a timeline, a relationship, or a fear. God often asks us to release what we think we can't live without, only to return it later, redeemed, restored, and multiplied. Abraham laid Isaac on the altar. Elijah poured water on the sacrifice before fire fell. The widow gave her last meal before abundance came. Each act of surrender opened the floodgates of heaven. That's because God honors obedience more than effort. He moves through yielded hearts, not striving hands. You might be standing in front of a situation that feels out of control, a broken relationship, a failing business, a sickness, a delay that's draining your hope. You've prayed and pushed, but the mountain hasn't moved. What if God isn't asking you to climb the mountain, but to lay it at His feet? What if the miracle you've been waiting for is on the other side of letting go? There is something divine that happens when you stop trying to force what's not flowing. The moment you surrender, you align yourself with the rhythm of heaven. And God begins to do in moments what you couldn't do in years. Surrender doesn't make life easier, but it makes it lighter. It doesn't remove the battle, but it changes how you fight it. You no longer fight for victory, you fight from victory. Because you understand that the outcome is already secured in God's hands. You begin to see setbacks not as punishment, but as positioning. You realize that closed doors are not rejection, they are redirection. You stop chasing what left and start embracing what's coming. That's the beauty of surrender. It clears your vision to see what God was trying to show you all along. There's a moment when your heart finally exhales and says, God, even if it doesn't happen the way I wanted, I still trust you. That's where peace lives. That's where freedom begins. Because surrender doesn't mean you've lost. It means you've given victory to the only one who can win. Every tear, every disappointment, every unanswered prayer becomes a seed planted in faith, and God never wastes a seed. So, before you give up, surrender. Not as an act of defeat, but as an act of worship. Lift your hands not in resignation, but in release. Tell God, I'm done trying to carry what you've already promised to handle. Let Him take it, let Him lead, let Him heal. Because when you let go, you don't fall, you fall into grace. And there, in the quiet of surrender, you will find that God was never waiting to change your circumstances. He was waiting to change your heart. The prayer that changes everything begins when you stop striving and start trusting. It begins when your why becomes thy will. It begins when your strength runs out and your spirit whispers, have your way, Lord. That's when heaven moves. That's when peace floods in. That's when the impossible becomes possible. So, before you walk away, before you lose faith, before you give up, kneel down and let go. Because the moment you do, you'll realize that the power you were chasing was waiting for you all along. hidden inside one simple act: surrender.